Breaking news, Target announcing it is rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at the company. In a memo to employees, the Minneapolis-based company says it will end its 3-year DEI goals, stop reports to external diversity-focused groups, and end a program focused on carrying more products from Black or minority-owned businesses. The decision follows President Trump's executive orders almost immediately after his inauguration to end the government's DEI programs. NBC's Brian Chung joining us now with that. Brian, this is a pretty significant change of direction for Target, right? Walk us through the company's history with DEI and suddenly a turnaround?
Yeah, Tom, as you outlined there, Target rolling back a number of their DEI policies in an announcement today. And in a memo that a chief executive officer in the high ranks of Target sending to employees today, they described the reason for making these DEI changes as, quote, the result of the evolving external landscape. And you can imagine what that external landscape entails. It is, of course, the new president wanting to roll back DEI within the federal government and a lot of these mounting challenges against other companies that we've seen in the last few months with regards to their DEI policies. But I want to point out, this is a pretty remarkable turn for a company, Target, that is based in Minneapolis. As you recall, that is the city where George Floyd was murdered in 2020.
And also the city where Tim Walz is the governor over. Let's just throw that inside of the mix.
Target at the time was one of the first companies to really go out and in a full-throated manner defend their efforts to try to boost DEI policies at the time. CEO Brian Cornell saying, quote, that could have been one of my Target team members. And then now here you have this announcement today, Tom, that they're rolling back those policies. It really does speak to the environment that we're in today.
Can you drill down on that? Because we have seen several companies kind of reversing course here, right? Are they reading the tea leaves for the culture nationwide, the pop culture or Main Street USA, or are they responding to pressure from President Trump?
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily directly a function of President Trump. You could argue that a lot of these pressures have actually been coming from the corporate sector and a lot of kind of activist groups, even in the months leading up to the election. But when you look at names like Harley Davidson, names like Walmart, names like McDonald's, these are companies that have pared back their DEI policies. But I want to point out it's not the case at every company. Just yesterday, Costco had a shareholder vote where they voted down a proposal to pare back their policies. And Tom, that vote was 98% against changing and rolling back their policies. So very much an open battleground in the DEI space, at least in corporate America.
Yeah.
A lot of these companies are going to have to make the decision from a couple different lenses. And the first lens that they got to make the decision from is trying to understand their customer base. And when I say understand their customer base, you got to understand that all companies operate based off of trying to be as profitable as possible, right? And so if it's not profitable to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, then they won't do it. And if it is profitable to market yourself, remember, AKA market yourself as diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they probably will do it. Costco, for all intents and purposes, has always seemed like it's been a woke company, but it's so interesting because Costco employees have basically voted to strike even though they've been getting crazy wages and stuff compared to other comparable companies like Sam's Club and Walmart, for example, and they're still voting to strike. So they can't even satisfy their own people. But the reality of it is that each company has the ability to do what they want to do instead of being required by federal law or the woke left to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some companies are going to choose to do it and create an entire division dedicated to it where they waste resources. And then other companies are going to be operating off of a merit-based system, but they should not be required to do anything. More importantly, it's funny because I see so many people talking about how they want to boycott this and boycott that. First of all, we don't believe you. You need more people. Secondly, they wasn't boycotting anything. The right was more or less concerned about real issues as far as seeing all of these rainbows and stuff inside of Target. And more importantly, most people don't even understand who the owners of these companies are. They want to boycott a company. In reality, the company is owned by shareholders, which is then governed by a board, and then they vote in who it is that they want and hire whatever, CEO and president and all of that they want to run a company. But regardless, I just think that it's stupid to have diversity, equity, and inclusion as a woke principle. I thought it was stupid for them to then champion and then basically market their business as that type of company anyway. I've always said that when you start to narrow yourself down into being a company for or against something, and you start to make it more political, you alienate yourself from the rest of your target base. The goal of a major company is to sell products. It's not to be woke. And we've forgotten about that. We've gotten so far away from it. I like companies, even some foreign companies, but I like companies that more or less focus more on selling and making great products, and they dedicate their resources to that, than to spend more of their time focused on how to be as woke as possible, because that's not going to create a better product for, getting the best product for my money. I don't really care about your policies, honestly. I'm going to go with the thing that more closely aligns with what I need to get done, and if it makes the most sense. I don't go into Lowe's. I went into Lowe's today in order to get an extension for a socket set. And I didn't look at Craftsman and say, you know what, I wonder if that company is diversity, equity, and inclusion. We don't even know what your policies and what your standards are as a company or as a CEO or representation of that company until you let us know. It's one of the reasons why even me personally, I decided that I didn't want to go further up the ladder in the company that I was working for, because I knew that my political views would reflect negatively on maybe a segment of the customer base. Stop marketing yourself and saying what you are and aren't going to do, and just be a merit-based company. Nobody kills Toyota for basically making cars. Toyota's management is more focused on making cars. They're not focused on being as woke as possible and using their visibility to have a conversation. I just seen something where Scottie Pippen said that Michael Jordan spent the majority of his time focusing and talking about basketball instead of talking about where his political views stand. Now, some people will then say, well, Michael Jordan isn't for black people because they wanted them to take a stand against one way or another. But the fact of the matter is, Michael Jordan's job was to play basketball. His political views were nobody else's business. And what we've seen in this popular culture, in the social media era, is that people are putting too much of themselves out there unnecessarily. Even me, I've learned to pare back some things that I do from a financial perspective. My family, they're not as visible anymore. I think it was necessary and it was cool at a time, but then once I started to evolve into a certain space or I got more visibility, I stopped saying it. I stopped sharing where I work. I stopped recording certain videos where I would take my daughter to work day and all of that stuff. And what I do offline, I completely remove it from the conversation. I've slowly but surely started to transition away from showing my daughter. My daughter is never, ever shown online, right? Very rarely you'll get a glimpse of my wife. Very rarely you'll get a glimpse of different things that's happening inside of my life. And that is very intentional, and it's because I'm removing certain segments of my life that's not necessary in order for me to continue to create great content from visibility. My thoughts is my thoughts. I stand somewhere politically because that is what comes along with what I do for a living. But what I really want to do and what I really got going on outside of that, what my other life is as far as what's meaningful to me outside of the internet, that don't have nothing to do with everybody else. And I think that what we've grown accustomed to is for most celebrities, most people, most companies to participate in every single segment. And I think that that's a mistake. I think it's a mistake. In addition to that, I don't think anything happens. People have short memories. It doesn't really matter what you say or do. And I think hiring somebody based off of who does the best job, or putting a brand in a store based off of what brand is going to sell versus what brand is more woke or who needs product placement, because again, it's a slippery slope. If you want to say, well, black people or Hispanic people, where does it end? Do you also create a section in the aisle for Asian people? Do you create a section in the aisle for Hispanic people? Do you create a section in the aisle for Indian people? You know what I'm saying? So I just don't understand where it ends. I know that black people are always, it seems like they're the most visible and the most mad of all groups, no matter what. But we'll see how that plays out. Let me know what y'all think about Target rolling back its diversity, equity, and inclusion program, in addition to all of the outrage that y'all see happening on all of these other platforms. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace.